Welcome everyone to the third Thursday meetup of the West Orlando WordPress Meetup group. I'm Rob Watson, a co-organizer and host. West Orlando WordPress is an official WordPress Meetup group and is affiliated with the main WordPress Orlando and WordCamp US Meetup groups. Tonight we are sponsored by ChipBot, a face-to-face video, a live chat, and a knowledge base, all in one easy-to-use tool for your website. ChipBot produces software that helps both businesses and their clients during any online interaction. ChipBot's WordPress plugin is easy to use, and the service can act as both a doorman and an aide, welcoming customers and assisting them with the questions that will move you closer to a sale. Visit getchipbot.com today and sign up for a free account. Use promo code WOWP to get 50% off your first month. If you build it, they will come, but if you do not maintain it, they will not stay for long. In this session, Michele Butcher-Jones will discuss why maintenance and security are important to your site and ways to make dealing with site updates not so painful. Michele Butcher-Jones is a lover of all things open source, a WordPress Core Contributor, an international speaker, and an avid campaigner to leave the world in a better place. She has spent over a decade helping others with their online presence, including site building, maintaining, hosting, and security. Michele spends her working time between agency support and higher education. She also runs her own WordPress shop at 13 Core and is the head geek at Can't Speak Geek. Her passion for making the web a better place doesn't stop there. She gives back to the community as a meetup organizer for St. Louis and the lead organizer for the Southern Illinois WordPress Meetup. Michele is typically up for any type of contributing to the WordPress community, often as a speaker, volunteer, answering questions in the forums, and teaching WordPress to beginners. Now that she is an empty nester, Michele is spending her time as a photographer, traveler, and collector of jewelry. She is currently working on her first book, set to be completed in 2023, and is always down for an adventure, especially if it involves great food or drinks. At this point, I'd like to invite everyone to mute their microphones for the presentation. Michele, thank you for being our presenter this evening. The time is now yours.
All right. I hope everyone's having a great evening. The importance of maintenance. When it comes to maintenance of your website, it's like maintenance of a car. You've got to, take care of things to make sure they stay alive. Of course, I hit the spacebar, wasn't even in here. Already had a great introduction from Rob, so I won't bore you too much. On the more of me, a little bit more of I'm also a WordPress Core Contributor. And I have issues in a way saying no to things because I enjoy the giving back. Like later on this year, I will be the volunteer lead for WordFest Live. And we just started today, maybe tomorrow, of taking applications if you would like to volunteer for WordFest Live to help out with emceeing, recording, any of that kind of stuff. We could always use your help. So the first thing is just the big concept of websites are not build it and forget it. They're just kind of growing, living things that have to take constant care, or bad things can happen. And what can happen if I don't update my site or take care or maintain it? It can get hacked, with WordPress right now being over, 25% of the web and 50% for all of CMS's used. It is the most popular software for CMSs, which means there's more hits on learning how to hack that software. Is kind of like because of Internet Explorer being one of the, for some strange reason, one of the most popular browsers, it's one of them to get hacked the most. If you leave your site not updated, it can also perform slower because the older the code is, the less it's being tweaked and fixed for it to perform better. Different aspects of your site may not work. If you've ever gotten a hold of a older website that says it's like, 2 or 3 big major versions behind, especially now in this day and age, if you find one that is pre 5.0 and you go to just hit update all on it, and it can go crash, boom, bang. And also with the advancement of our PHP versions, If it's not updated for the PHP or the WordPress and you go to update one of them and not the other, it can lead to aspects not working. And when it's not working or performing slower or hacked, you could lose leads, which means it could be costly for you to not get those sales clients customers, or your clients not getting the sales clients customers. But also it can be costly because the more you have a system of updating your site, which we'll go into what to update when, it can cost more in the long run to update it, like say once a year. It's kind of like for if you grow your hair out. If you keep it trimmed every like 6 to 8 weeks, it doesn't like go into a wall of craziness. But if you decide I'm only going to cut it once a year, it could look really shaggy by the time it comes to time to cut it. And then also it can lead to bigger headaches in the long run when it comes to not updating your site. For as long as it'll take to deal with it, you could have more bugs and issues when updating different things, because if you're jumping instead of like from like 1 or 2 small versions to 1 or 2 major versions, that code changes and you're not really, especially if you don't know how to read the change log, you might miss of like depreciated code that you would need to change or something like that with the plugins. And then the first thing in a way you should think about with maintenance and site updates and stuff like that is actually when building the site. If you're not thinking of the forwardness and future of your site after it goes live, you're kind of already behind the 8 ball once you launch it. Because when you launch a site, you kind of want it to be like a brand new car. You want to be all shiny and new with like only 14 miles on it. And if you launch it, like say you've been working on the site for a year and you launch it without even updating things, technically your car's already like 4 versions behind. So it'd be almost like you buying a car in 2018, but not even driving it till today, not even having an oil change, airing the tires or anything. You let it sit for 4 years. It could mean that your tires are like squished or at least molded because it's sitting in there, and as you take off from the dealership, you're going the first thing you need to do when building the site is make sure you're vetting your themes and plugins. And the first thing is to make sure that they are currently supported. You don't want to use anything that you're not going to have support on later on. And when you're using things from like the repo, you can really see quickly on if a plugin is being supported and updated, because it'll show like how many versions it is behind, how quickly they're answering the support forum questions. And that'll give you a good sense for the free plugins if they're being supported or not. And then also make sure that when you use something that is doing just the job you need it to, and it doesn't have a lot of the unnecessary fluff to it. Like you can see the different plugins that are like in themes where we have like it can do like 73 different things on your site, except for really all you need it for is like 2 or 3 things. And then look at its stats. Do a lot of people trust it? Has it been put on a lot of sites? How many downloads there is? When people do leave their reviews on it, do they talk about like it being updated often, or they had to reach out to support and they helped them? Those types of stats with downloads, the support log, and the reviews can give you a good idea on if that particular plugin is good to use. Because anymore, especially like the bigger things you need, there's always going to be 3 or 4 of kind of the same plugin to use. Some's going to be a lot more reputable than the others. And then if choosing a pre-built theme, number 1 for the pre-built, make a child theme for it if you want to make any modifications to the code. Kind of think of the same process as like your Genesis framework, the Cadence themes, the Astra themes, where you can go ahead and make a child theme for it that you can change the code on that, but then the framework is still updatable. And then especially if you're going to use like one of the Envato themes that you like how it's set up, but you want to change some of the CSS on it, go ahead and make a child theme of that so that you can still update that like Envato theme force theme. And then make sure it's the theme is from a reputable company, especially with the advance of like Twitter, Mastodon, all the social medias. You can pretty much go into Google and type in a theme company and look for reviews, or ask amongst the like meetups and stuff to see which are ones that are good. And then also don't choose a theme just because it has the most shiny objects. 9 times out of 10 with these themes that have baked in plugins, all the different features and templates and stuff like that, sometimes you don't need a bazooka for the anthill. And when looking at the ones with the shiny objects, especially the ones that will have plugins baked into the themes, one of the big offenders is the Avada theme, which is great in a way. It can do almost anything you can think of. However, back in 2015, when the Rev Slider plugin had a huge vulnerability and over 300,000 sites got hacked, a lot of those people whose sites got hacked did not realize that built inside the Avada theme was the Rev Slider plugin, and they didn't really realize it because they didn't upload that plugin from the theme onto their site, so they didn't really realize that they had code just sitting there. And then when using anything that's not on the theme or plugin repositories, that is wordpress.org/themes or wordpress.org/plugins. This is when you're thinking of like looking at like using the premium plugins like Gravity Forms, or your freemium plugins like GiveWP and all their different things. Always get a license for it, because with that license, you're going to pay for their support. You're going to pay for their updates. And if you don't get a license per site for it, you won't be able to access the updates and or support for them. And then also it just makes it a lot easier when you're maintaining the site to always have that license on it. Typically when you're using anything premium or freemium is they will have if you're just buying the per site licenses. If you're using any type of staging software in your host, like where if it's like Flywheel, it'll be like sitename.flywheelsites.com or sitename.wpengine.com. Usually those staging URLs or clone URLs will be covered under the staging area of the license, and they're only really looking for the vanity URL for what covers on those site license. And then also keep the license renewed. It can be like with WooCommerce type things. You can kind of maybe forget about having to license them, and you go back and you're trying to figure out why something isn't working, and it's like, oh, because the license hasn't renewed. And if it's one of the sites that don't really give you much of a notice about them, like they might only send you 1 or 2 emails saying, hey, it's time to renew, but won't like do the glaring boxes in your WordPress backend. Some of those plugins for the license is for the plugin to actually work, or for the plugin to get the updates. And some of the ones on Code Canyon, if you don't have the Envato helper update plugin on there, you might not realize that your plugin is like 6 or 7 versions behind because you were not getting the notifications because the plugin wasn't licensed. And then also for the to pay for me, you can utilize their support if needed, which is sometimes a very blessing in disguise with how things are changing so much in the past like 4 years with Gutenberg, and with changing over to more React and the REST API types things. It's almost like use a car thing again of it used to be so much easier to work on a car before everything was computerized. Like you could just go and like remove the carburetor and do what you need to it. And now with the more technology built in vehicles, it's not as easy for the hobbyist mechanic to work on them, which is kind of the same for WordPress the more we grow in code. And then when building a site, also kind of follow the rules. When you are following the WordPress standards, best practices, security best practices, it actually makes it easier to maintain it because you don't have to worry about thinking about the custom coding that you made for the site. And the more custom coding you do, the more functions that you put in, like say the functions.php, instead of having plugins, the more you'll have to think if you are wanting to do a plugin conflict review or just switch out the theme. If you have a lot of custom coding in your functions.php instead of making a plugin for it, the more you have to remember, oh, I've got to take this out and copy it over, or that function is going to be missing. And then also there's no magic function for what you need. All sites are built different on different types of hosts for different needs and wants. If there was a magic potion and a straight process for it all, we'd probably have some boring sites and probably kind of be most of us out of a job because of the design aspects of it. But then we get into our sites are live. Now we have to worry about the updates and security and oh my gosh, what do I do? Because I have the site and no one told me I needed to do anything with it. I hear that one a lot when it comes to the small businesses who have a site built and the team who built it is like, oh, here you go. Here's your nice new shiny site. Have fun, bye. And they're not really taught of what they need to do afterwards. And with the education, if you're wanting to be a person who sells maintenance as a business, the more education you can give the clients, the better off everyone is, because the more they know, the less they might go in and try to break. I know some people are worried about, oh, well, the more they know, the more I could be, quote, out of a job on it. But say you are out sick or something for God forbid 6 to 8 weeks, and you're not able to update their sites then, and you don't really have anyone you can trust to help you with those business needs. They can feel okay that, oh, I see this one thing needs to be updated. They already told me about how to do things, and be more confident in it instead of you coming back 6 to 8 weeks later and having a whole bunch of broken sites and work to do. So first, updates happen for a reason. The reason is either a bug fix, a new feature, or vulnerability fix 99% of the time. And well, most of us has probably used Yoast at some time or another, and how they are really good about pushing out new updates for mostly bug fixes. Trust me, they're not really doing it to drive us insane, no matter how much we think they are. Because there has been times, and I pick on Yoast a bit on it, because there's been times where I have went through and I have updated everything, and sites are all, the staging was good, I update live and everything is good, and then bing, you have a new update for Yoast that can be done. It's because they did a bug fix. And there's sometimes when you push all those, you're like, yay, done, and then ding, you're like, ah. But they're there for a reason. Just like this happens a lot more with if you have a Windows machine than a Mac. Of you get ready to close it and like, oh, you can't close your computer right now because Microsoft's doing updates. And it always happens when you are needing to like run out of the house or your office. It's never at a convenient time where you can just sit back and watch it happen. And then also you can automate your maintenance and updates and security to kind of have it done on the side where you don't have to spend that much time doing it yourself. And we're going to work from the bottom up on this cone, because the bottom I put is the most often things that should be happening. For uptime, you can automate the uptime to be checked like every 5 minutes. Uptime Robot will do this for free for you. If you are a fan of the Jetpack plugin, they have an Uptime that will watch it for you. There are other different like main WP, managed WP, ones like that, who can do it for you as well. But it's kind of good to have it set for every 5 minutes. There are some people who say every 1 minute. However, if you have a chunky site, or if you have a site that's on more of a basic host plan, or if you have a site that is had a lot of visitors, sometimes doing that every minute means they're pinging your site every minute to make sure it's up. And those hits of it every minute can be kind of a resource hog. But the every 5 minutes gives it a good break in between it. Backups, back up your site daily, and most definitely before you make any changes to the site. For security, have your site scanned daily for any security threats. There's a lot of different plugins out there that can do that. We'll get into a little bit more of them later. Then every so often, I like to tell my clients do it at least once a week, is just kind of click around your site to ensure all is well. Actually spelled ensure as endure. This is what I get for, reviewing my slides late at night and being like, yeah, it's good. Because with the vision check, the clients or yourselves of the site know the site's best, can really tell, like, that wasn't like that yesterday. Instead of having someone new come in, never seeing the site, they might not notice like images being moved around or anything like that. They're just like, it's not broken, so I guess it's good. And then update all the things on like a weekly schedule. And you can there's a lot of the hosts where you can automate updates now, or you can use different plugins and services for it. And then have it set, especially for core, to automatically update if there's a security update. Because with the security updates, typically there's already been a 0-day known vulnerability of it. So if there's already a known vulnerability, the hackers are already trying to make code to exploit that. And then yearly, check to ensure that all your plugins and themes and everything you're using is still supported. You could go, especially the repo plugins, that's kind of easy to do because you'll see on the side, like if it's supported by the version you're on, when the last site update, when the last plugin update was. And I typically say if a plugin hasn't been updated in 2 years, it's probably not all that supported anymore. And then when should I update the things? Immediately, vulnerability patches. Because with the vulnerability patches, it's just easier to click that button for to update it and be on your day. Weekly to bi-weekly, your plugins, themes, and WordPress core. It's really easy to automate that. Of course, do it on staging first and then live. Monthly, any content changes on your site, but then also be looking at like Google My Business and your informational pages, like your social media pages and things like that, just to make sure like your hours and info and like that is still correct. It's kind of easy, just like you like for like changing out the monthly air filters, kind of being like doing that quick check just to make sure everything is good, especially in our ever-changing times with the past 2 years, like with COVID and different kinds of sicknesses and stuff like that. It's always better just to make sure you have that on a schedule to make sure your hours are correct. Like, for example, we have a little grocery store here. I looked on their Google My Business page. I looked on their Facebook page, and all said that they closed at 7 p.m. So I got off work and I'm like, yes, I'm going to go get me. They've got a really good deli in the back of the restaurant. And went there, got there like 5:15 because they're to be open till 7 because Google My Business and Facebook said it. Yeah, they changed their hours to be closing at 5. And they have some of the best Italian beef in my area. So I was very, very sad on my drive home. Quarterly, change your passwords. Make sure your passwords are secure and unique. We're going to have a fun story here soon about when it comes to passwords and security. And then yearly, make sure you are renewing any your premium renewals with plugins, themes, your hosting, and your domain, and any tools that you use. And every 3 years, you should look into updating the look and theme of your site. And also remember, updates are in 3 steps, not just click update. Number 1, back up the site. Because if you have a backup, nothing's ever permanent. Then you back up the things, and then you QA the things. You don't just go into updates and click update all the plugins and then go to lunch, because that's when Murphy's Law loves to happen, and you come back and the site is broken. And then the do's and don'ts of updating. Do update on the staging, clone, or local instance of your site first. Cowboy coding will typically bring in Murphy with that as well. Do update all the things. And do only update a few items at a time, especially if the site has got a ton of plugins on them. You won't want to really update 37 plugins at one time, because it's going to give you more than likely a PHP error. And then also, if one of the plugins has a conflict, it's a lot easier to narrow it down when you're only updating 2 or 3 at a time. And also, one thing I didn't add in here is when you're doing the updates, copy down what the plugin name is, what the version it was on, and what you're updating it to. So if you do ever have to do any type of plugin conflict resolution or use the WP rollback plugin, you'll know what to roll it back to. And then the do nots. Do not update on a live site without testing first. And most of these 3 here are like Murphy's Law type of views. Also, don't update on a Friday or the day before the holiday, because that's just bad luck. If anyone's ever done that, and more than likely that's when you go to update on a Friday afternoon, because this is an easy site, won't be issues, and you'll be there till 7 p.m. trying to fix it. And also, don't skip an update just because it breaks something. With the free plugins, those you'll be able to get the support on the repo. The premium plugins, that's part of the reason why we pay for our licenses, is to be able to use their support. And then security does not have to make you crazy. I know there's a lot of people who will think, I don't have to worry about my site. It's just a test server, or I don't get that much traffic. No one's ever going to hack it. I've seen testing sites get hacked. I had one that somehow it got even on a DDoS attack, because it's very minimal times when your site is targeted for a reason for your site. Like your political sites, government sites, things like that can be targeted because of what the site is. But if it's just like a normal business site or a blog or some type of your knitting, crocheting kitten toys and selling them, those all can be hit typically by bots. And what it is it's just hitting IP addresses saying, do you have this vulnerability? Nope. Next one. Do you have this vulnerability? Next time one. Do you? Yes. Oh, yay. I'm going to now hack you because I can get in. It's typically how they are now. And the most scariest thing of it is no site is ever 100% secure ever, because they're online, because when it comes to code is written by humans, and humans are to err. Like with that, there's today's features and oh my goshness on new codes, tomorrow's vulnerabilities, unfortunately. But there are many ways to keep your site as secure as possible, and that comes like with your passwords, updates, and all the little best practices. And I will say it's very easy to secure a website by using like the plugins, writing code, passwords, than it is to clean a hack site, especially if you have a lot of photos on your site, because a lot of times the bad juju code likes to hide in either your theme, your plugin, or your uploads files. And if you say your site is 13 years old, that's 13 times 12 folders for just the uploads you would need to look through to get all that icky code out. Now, when it comes to security, and with me saying I had a little story for you for passwords. So oftentimes people don't think of any type of security or insurance and stuff until the bad things happen. Like, how many people do you know? Oh, I never locked my doors until my house got broken into. What type of stories are there out there? Well, when it comes to online security, one of the biggest ways to keep yourself secure is complex and unique passwords. Because if, say, you have a website and your email that you're using is like michelle@gmail.com, and they always want passwords to at least be like, at least eight characters long. So I'm going to do mine as I love cookies. I want to make mine a little secure, so I'm going to put the I as an exclamation point and the O's and cookies as zeros. But I don't like using password managers. So for my email, and my other things, I'm probably going to use variations of it. So say someone hacks my website and they figure out that my password is I love cookies and my email address is michelle@gmail.com. Well, then that hacker can go straight to Gmail and type it all in. And yes, I'm using the same password on my email as I am for the site. And they get into the site. And then they're looking through my emails and they see that, oh, I bank with Bank of America. So I'm the hacker and I'm going to go over to Bank of America and I'm going to type in the email address and I love cookies. Well, that didn't work. So they said it's the wrong password. So I'm going to do I love cookies, but change that exclamation point to an I and then put the exclamation point on the end, because that's a little bit enough variation for it, but it's still easy to remember. That worked. So they got into now my website, my email, and my bank account. And then they see on my bank account that I have like an Ameritrade account with stocks. And because most of the time people use the email addresses as their login usernames, and I'm still kind of in that same process of using close to exact passwords. So they tried the password that I use for the bank, because a lot of people like, oh, I'll have all my financial passwords the same to kind of keep it straight in their head. Well, that worked. So now within 10 minutes, someone has gotten into my website, gotten into my email, gotten into my bank, gotten into my stocks, aka retirement fund. But if you change your passwords to all be like at least 12 characters and a mixture of uppercase and lowercase numbers and special characters, and they're not legible. And then the best way to do that is use a password protector like 1Password, LastPass, KeePass, something like that. So the only password you have to remember is that one to get into your password manager. The safer you will be from anyone getting in. And with the password protectors, managers, they can be on your phone. You can see at the top of mine, the little circle here, that's my 1Password account. So I don't have to worry about it. And with thinking of that also, it's better to use a password manager than to save them in your browser. Because what happens if someone gets a hold of your machine? And also with the password managers, for if you're wanting to like run a maintenance type business or have clients in design, development, maintenance, hosting, it makes it so much easier to be able to share those passwords with your clients when you're using a manager, because you don't want to send them through plain text email. And with the plugins can make your life so much easier when it comes to updates, maintenance, and security. Here are 6 of them that I tend to have used. Manage WP. You can run your updates in there as long as you connect it to like the staging site and the live site. It can do security checks for you, performance checks, and also you can make reports from your client. All of that kind of stuff there is free, but then they also have a premium way for like if you want to whitelist or reports and stuff like that. Updraft Plus, great little backup plugin. WordFence, it's one of the best free WordPress security scanners and plugins. And you can also use that in mixture with iTheme Security, which iTheme Security is a best practices plugin. It'll help you for like locking down your file structures. It helps for if you want to do security through obscurity by changing like your login page if you're hit with like DDoS attacks. But it does not have a firewall or anything like that, like WordFence does. Jetpack has got, you either love it or you hate it, but they do have some great features, especially if you're a new person wanting to kind of have all the little features, but not sure of how to get them all in the different places. And Backup WP is also another great little plugin to use. That's kind of like Updraft Plus. You can schedule it to make your backups and then forget about it. Now with Updraft Plus and it's Back WP Up, I think. One of the ways. Those two are really good to use if your host doesn't get have backups for you, or if you're just wanting a way to be able to make like quick zip backups instead of having to go into your host to make them. And then now, since we're done with the security, here's some tips I've learned while working in with maintenance, support, and security. Number one, always make a backup every single time. And with a backup, nothing is ever permanent. And then do not save the backup on your server. Send it someplace else. One of the things that people might think is a bit crazy when it comes to backup, if you are working on a site, you're not using like GitHub or version control or something like that. It's just like the staging site of WP Engine. If you get to a point where you're like, yes, this code works, you can always hit that save button to make a save spot on it, especially like if you're going to go grab a bite to eat, pause or something, or you're getting ready to go try to build another feature that could or could not break the site. There's no real big too many backups. But when you need to revert back to something and there's nothing there, you might end up having to go back farther than what you need to do. And then for where to send the backup to, you don't want it on the server, because if your server gets hacked, then that backup might also be hacked. And then it's also okay to ask for help. Some of the best areas are Facebook groups, social media, your local WordPress meetup, and support forums. There's always people out there to help. This is one of the best professional communities out there when it comes to kind of checking the egos, when it comes to the proprietary information, and different ones to help out with each other. Like there might be someone from like who works in GoDaddy Pro who might be, you see, asking a question of like, say with we were talking about with SiteGround, and you're just kind of wondering, like, does SiteGround offer cPanels? You might actually see one of those GoDaddy Pro guys on Twitter or in like the Facebook hosting group to go ahead and answer that. Everyone is really great to work with on if you ask for help. And then if your site is ever hacked, it's not the end of the world, because you have the backups and it can be cleaned, and we can revert it back to when it was cleaned and lock it back down for you. And this is what we prepared you for talking about with having on the security plugins and making those backups and updating things. And there are others that can help you for it. Did I skip? Nope. Okay, maybe not. And then when it comes to doing the site updates, getting into automating by using like Managed WP and Updraft Plus and having Uptime Robot on it, can you really make a business out of this and actually make money? Well, actually, there's already some amazing companies already doing it that you can look at for a good idea of where to get started. Some of them are Valet.io, who they were actually started in Bradenton, Florida. WP Maintain, them guys are great. WP Site Care with Ryan is awesome for the maintenance and updates. And a shameless plug, I kind of do the stuff over at 13 Core too. And then what you can do for doing the business of it is set yourself a bit different from the others. Give kind of a one big aspect of it. Kind of like if you are also really big into SEO, you can kind of, I can help you with keeping your site updated, but also we can make sure that your SEO stays updated as well. Or like we can also help you watch your PPC, or I'm really good at content, so we can keep your site updated, and I can help you like write blog posts, but always have kind of a thing that will set you apart, and have a plan of action for the maintenance, like have it set up of when you're going to do it. So it kind of makes it easier on you for the maintenance, because sometimes like if you push things off on it, it can be a bit overwhelming on the maintenance side of things. Stay firm on your prices. You are worth it. There's so much now, and we're getting more and more saturated the more awesome we are with WordPress, that people might want to try to lowball you on things. You know what you are worth, and you are definitely worth it. So those people are like, yeah, I want you to update my site, but I can only pay you like $5 a month. They can do it themselves for that price, and show the value when you do it. And then for selling the maintenance, you can sell it as it's the same as buying car insurance or getting that oil change. We always have to stay on top of things. Have a few tiered plans where it's like the basic of we make a backup for you once a week, we update your site once a month, to like the big plans where it's like we will update your site once a week. We will have backups done daily, and all the kind of bells and whistles. But then also when it comes to selling it, is be knowledgeable about selling the why maintenance is so important, and really just kind of push that. The little things we do now will make it an easier tomorrow for you. And then when it comes to having the business side of it, there's also a thought of, should I build a network? Because a lot of times the maintenance companies, especially starting out, are a solopreneur company. One of the best things I have found in my time with WordPress is, even if I'm a solopreneur when it comes to my business, I do have a great network of people, whether it's ones I hire or at least know ones who freelance. And then for the ones I don't really enjoy or know the aspects of those type of things, like I am great at cleaning a hack site and being able to troubleshoot issues. Not all that great at SEO, but I have a friend who's actually in the group, Carlos, who I always send all my SEO client questions to. And then like for me, when it comes to when they want like redirections done, that is the one thing I absolutely loathe doing. So I'll have a friend who's really great and actually enjoys doing that kind of stuff, and find those types of people that you can trade work with. Like, Carlos can do SEO while I can do site hacks. And it really builds up those partnerships. And once you build up those partnerships, you can actually more expand of what your business plan is. And then because I was able to see some of the questions everyone asked, I figure I would add a little bit more in here for answering the questions everybody asked. Number one, who is the best host? Spoiler alert, there's not one perfect host for all the sites. It really depends on your budget, your need, your size of the website, and traffic for the most parts. And they're all about as secure as you want them to be. There are only 2 hosts out of all the big names in WordPress that I've never cleaned a site on, which is Pagely and Pantheon. And if you can afford it, don't do the shared hosting, just because when you have dedicated hosting, it's just your stuff on that box. You control how safe it is. When you're on shared hosting, you don't have full control. You don't know what else is on there with you. And really, you get what you pay for when it comes to hosting. And then I always get, but what about, blah.bot host? I've had a site on GoDaddy since 2015, and that sucker, knock on wood, has never been hacked. Bluehost is another one I get asked about a lot, and it's about as secure as it can be with, if you keep the site updated, have complex passwords, and not really do the shared hosting option. One thing with them, though, that they are very adamant when it comes to the security on their site, especially if you are on a shared host, and if that site ever does get hacked, they will lock it down very quickly. So that's when you definitely want to make sure you have the backups of the sites, so you can be able to get a backup, clean it, and get yourself back live again. There are only 2 hosting companies I will not recommend. I will not say them on recorded talk or social media, as they are my own opinion. But with that being said, I have worked with GoDaddy, Bluehost, Pantheon, Pagely, SiteGround, 101, HostGator, Nexus, InMotion Hosting, Liquid Web, WP Engine, and Flywheel, to name a few. What is my favorite backup plugin? Free would be Updraft Plus or BackWP Up. I was right, it was BackWP Up. Premium, I really do enjoy BlogVault. Best for automation, though, are the ones that come with your hosting account, if they do have it in your hosting account. What's my favorite maintenance plugin? Free would be Managed WP, GoDaddy Pro, which GoDaddy Pro, a lot of that stuff is Managed WP, just on a different layout, or iThemeSync. Premium, BlogVault is pretty nice, and those extra features with Managed WP are pretty great. What's my favorite security plugins? For free, WordFence and iTheme Security, both working together, but when you use them together, make sure, like, say, if you are setting like it to not show the WordPress version on iTheme Security, don't turn on that version in WordFence. And then premium, I really still just enjoy the premium versions of WordPress and iThemes. Who do I call if I get hacked? Shameless Club. Myself, WordFence, or Security are all good options. And then I know I kind of went a bit overtime this time, but thank you all for having me today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much for this presentation. I've been actually looking forward to this one because I also do maintenance, and I like to see how other folks do maintenance for their clients. So this is very, very informative. It's very great.